Welcome to Web Development Lesson 2.6. In this lesson, we're going to cover different ways, different locations where we can write CSS rules. We're also going to see a way that we can prioritize a particular CSS rule in case the CSS specificity is presenting a problem in the way we've written our rules. So let's get to it. So as a quick preview, this is what we have so far. We actually have a small website that has 3 pages. This is the home page. Here's our nav bar. And you can kind of see that in the home page, we have some styling. Not a lot, some. When we go to page 1, all it is just the HTML. It's void of any CSS. Same thing with page 2. Now, when you go to create websites, you want continuity between your web pages. So you want to have roughly the same type of CSS being applied to all your web pages. So you could go through and copy and paste the CSS rules to every single page. But if your website is 100 pages deep, that's a lot of copy and pasting. And let's say you decide to make a modification to the CSS. Now you have to replicate that modification across all those pages. Not very efficient and can be prone to errors. So what we've been practicing up until now is to use what's called external CSS. By using this HTML element, the link element, we're able to connect an external CSS file to our web page. So let's go to this file. And this is something you've been seeing up until now in all these videos. But let me show you a little bit of the strength here after we do some minor changes to our web page. So going back to our home page, it'd be kind of nice to maybe have the banner stand out more. Right now it's just an H1 with a little paragraph underneath. And if we go to the index, we'll see that the div that's containing that heading in that paragraph has an ID of banner. So let's go ahead and style that. So we'll say banner. Let's give it a background color. Let's say black. Let's give it a color of white so that we can see the words. Let's give it a little padding. 15px. And let's go ahead and center the text as well. So we're going to use text align, center. And let's see what that looks like on the home page. All right, so it definitely makes the banner stand out more. And that's something you want on a web page throughout a website. So wouldn't it be cool that when we went to page 1, it kind of looked the same? I mean, right now, page 1 looks broken. So here's the beauty of one of the beauties of external CSS. So we made the change here. If we simply take this line and copy it to our page 1, which doesn't have a link to the CSS file. Let's do that for page 2 as well. Now we're going to have the same CSS in all 3 pages. And if we go back to home, now we go to page 1, notice it feels a lot better. There's continuity across the website because they're all sharing the same external CSS file. Again, this is one of the push benefits of external CSS is that you can make the changes in one spot and then all your pages get it. But now let's say we want to offer a little bit of individuality on a page so that they all don't look exactly the same. Well, that's where internal CSS comes in. So internal CSS, kind of like the name implies, is inside the actual web page. So it's part of the web page. It's not in some external file. So let's go ahead and change the background color of the body. And let's change the first page maybe to like, let's say yellow. And let's do that. Look at it real quick. And we can see here that the home page now looks yellow, and page 1 and page 2 are still white. So let's modify those pages as well. I'm just going to copy this to make my life easier. So the style element is typically written in the head element of a web page up top. There are some variations as to where you can write it, but internal CSS must be written inside the style element. Okay, that's the key thing. That's what makes it an internal. So let's do the last page now. So we did magenta. Let's do cyan for the last page. And let's check out the website. All right, cool. So our home page is yellow. Page 1 is magenta. Page 2 is cyan. So there's still that continuity across the website where each page has that strong banner that connects the web pages to each other visually. But now there's that individuality that we were able to do with internal CSS where each page has its own background color. And again, that's nice. You don't have to necessarily make all your web pages look exactly the same, but there should be enough there that lets the visitor, the user, know that, oh, okay, I'm still on the same website. So let's discuss the last type of CSS, which is inline. So external exists in a separate file. Internal exists in the style element. Inline, as kind of like the name implies, is in the same line as the element. So the way we do this is to add the style attribute. So again, with a little bit of practice and paying attention to details, you'll keep track of which one is which and what's the benefit of each one. Because again, the word style is being used all over the place. It's just the way it's being used. So for inline styling, and I'll do this as a comment just kind of connected here. This is inline CSS. You use the style attribute. Now, when you write the rule, you don't have to specify the selector. Reason being, the style attribute is in the element. So the only thing you're styling is just this one element. That is it. You're not styling anything else. So let's have the colors of the letters. Right now they look blue, and it's a little bit dark to see against the black background of the button. Let's style them the same color as the background. So here we go. I'm going to stretch this out so it just fits on the same line. And let's copy and paste this to the other buttons before we go in preview. And I believe this page was magenta. And the last page was cyan. All right, so let's check out the website now. Hit refresh. Okay, so that looks better. And the fact that the color matches the background, it's a design consideration, but it's a nice one. Again, making connections throughout the website so things don't feel out of place. Let's check out page 1. Same thing, kind of matches the background. Page 2. So this was done with inline styling. The background was done with internal styling, internal CSS. And the banner and some of the fonts and the buttons, this was all done with external CSS. So you can kind of see a web page, a website can have multiple, ways of including the styling for the website. So I want to go back to the web page and I want to do something cool with the button. Let's work with the pseudo class hover and make the letters change colors when we hover over them. So because it's something that we want to apply to all the web pages, the home page, the page 1, the page 2, we want the buttons for all these pages to act a certain way. Well, that gives you an indication that you should use external CSS because again, it's something to apply to all the web pages. So let's go up here and let's do click me, hover. And let's simply change the color to white. So again, so it kind of stands out. So we're going to go to home, let's try it there. So we're hovering. The colors of the letters aren't turned white. So you might think, well, wait a minute, maybe there's an error in the CSS? Well, let's look. We are targeting the element, and we're saying that when we hover over it. So we should change the color to white, but it's not. I need to remind you of something called CSS specificity, which states that inline has a higher precedence than ID, that has a higher precedence than class, that has a higher precedence than element. So that is the issue we're running into. And that if you recall, all these buttons are using inline styling. So this inline styling is taking precedence over anything that has to do with an ID. And that's what CSS specificity states. So how can we get around this? Well, one easy way to get around it is don't use inline styling. You'll find that in most professional websites, there is no inline styling. It's either internal or preferably external. So, but there is a small tool you can use, which is to add the word important at the end of your CSS rule. This will supersede any other CSS rule that's being applied. So let's see that this works, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Okay, so notice the letters turn white, letters turn white, letters turn white. So it did solve our problem in the sense that we wanted that CSS rule to be applied to all the buttons throughout our website. And again, hopefully you see it kind of looks cool now. And we only had to write it once. I will caution you though, many times when students see this, they start to overuse it. That anytime there's some conflict with the CSS rules, they'll just stick important. Use this sparingly, or really not at all. If you're using important, there must have been a better way for you to write your CSS rules so there isn't a conflict. One easy way is definitely don't try to avoid inline styling. Though it's cool and it's easy, it does present the problem when you have conflicting rules. The last thing I want to show you is the fact that a web page can have multiple externals. So, you can actually avoid internal CSS as well. So let's create a separate file called index CSS. And what we're going to do in index CSS is we're simply going to write these rules. So I'm going to take the body background yellow out. I'm going to put it in here. And let's just take out the style section completely. So let's refresh. And let's see what happened to our home page. So our home page went back to white. Reason being we took that internal CSS rule out. So now that we've added that rule to a separate page, we can simply add it the same way we did the style.css. Except we're going to put page, or actually, no, I'm sorry, index CSS. So we are loading two separate pages. We're going to load the style first and then the index. And this completely avoids having to use internal. So when you look at a lot of professional websites, this is the route they go. Just, one style sheet for common things across the whole website, and then individual style sheets for specific pages. Let me show you that this works though before I continue. And there you go. So the home page is yellow, using external CSS for both the background and the common things throughout the website. This one is still inline styling. And here's the website. So there's continuity with the look. There's individuality with specific CSS to a page. So let's do a quick review. So in this lesson, we covered external CSS, internal CSS, and inline. And we were introduced to the important value that you can add to a CSS rule. As a further recap though, just to kind of emphasize, External CSS is written in a separate file and can be used throughout multiple web pages on a website. Definitely the preferred method of writing CSS rules. Internal CSS is actually located in the web page in the style element, usually up top in the head element. It offers you to individualize the CSS for each of your web pages. Inline CSS has the benefit of being embedded in the actual element using the style attribute. It does have some challenges in that it is the highest level of CSS specificity, so you have to be careful. It can present problems when trying to use class CSS rules as well as ID CSS rules. So hopefully you're excited about being able to start making websites that look and feel professional. So enjoy.